back-to-back F1 action. The Chinese Grand Prix is only a few days away, and this will really set the scene for how the rest of the season will play out. Are McLaren really this far ahead of the pack? Williams are fast? Well, time to find out. This is everything you need to know for the Chinese Grand Prix in 2025. So we'll start this video going over some stats that are held at the Chinese Grand Prix. So you have the person who's won the most here, which would be Lewis Hamilton, winning 6 times. Now, in that Ferrari where it is, am I expecting him to win? Maybe not, but I'm expecting him to give a good show, potentially maybe get into that top 5. We'll see how hard it is for Ferrari at China. The other one to look out for, however, is your 2-time winner here of Fernando Alonso. Now, the Aston Martin isn't a very good car at the minute, as we saw in Australia. However, we know what he can do at a track that he loves. We know what Alonso can do when he gets into the groove of things, so I'm not expecting him to get near the top 8, but potentially he could be fighting near those points paying positions. I mean, he got the fastest lap last year here, and he came 7th, beating Piastri and Hamilton. So don't write him off for potentially getting the low end of the points. Most pole positions would again go to Lewis Hamilton, who has the same amount as he has wins here, which would be 6. So Hamilton, like I said, is another one who really loves this track. Apart from 2007, which I think is a bit traumatizing for him, he's been pretty good here. Then the most successful constructor would be Mercedes, who have won 6 times here. Basically all with Lewis Hamilton, a few with Nico Rosberg. Mercedes, now again, they're not a McLaren. However, like we've seen with George Russell, he can sneak into the podium positions. So expect at least one of Russell or Antonelli to be in the top 5. Then the results from last season for the Chinese Grand Prix were Verstappen, Norris and Perez. Now this was quite an interesting race because last year it wasn't the second race. It was a bit further down. I think it was the 4th or 5th race. And basically, this was the first race where we actually saw that the Red Bulls could be beaten. Because even Perez in that Red Bull was getting 2nd place. That's how dominant they were at the start of 2024. Could we see another similar storyline where we come from Australia, where McLaren look unbeatable, and someone puts it in the middle of Norris and Piastri, or maybe even goes for it ahead of them? Only time will tell. And then finally, stats-wise, overtaking for last year's Grand Prix was 53 overall. We had 32 in the actual race and 21 in the sprint race. Which actually leads on straight to what I want to talk about, which is the scheduling of the whole of the Chinese weekend. And as you should know, it is a sprint race weekend. So what does this mean? Basically, it just means jam-packed action throughout the whole weekend. It means we only get 1 practice session on the Friday. So if you want to see how the teams are setting up, as then we have sprint quali on the Friday as well, followed by the sprint race on the Saturday with qualifying, and then the race on Sunday. So a lot of F1 to unpack, but that's what we love, isn't it? Comment your feelings down below on the sprint race weekends, because I know it still is quite a 50-50 thing where a lot of people think it's too much and some people think, yay, more racing. So with this all set in stone, let's head over to our weatherman, ZachGP. Good morning, China. This is ZachGP, your weatherman. And my God, if Australia was chaos, well, we're not going to get it in China, don't you worry. There is no rain forecasted, so your F1 fantasy teams are saved. However, it is going to be clear skies on the Friday and the Saturday, with Sunday being cloudy but not with a chance of meatballs, don't you worry. And throughout the whole weekend, it's expected to be around the mid-20s. Not too cold, not too hot. I don't think that really helps one team in particular. But considering we only saw qualifying in massive temperatures, maybe McLaren will slow down, maybe someone can catch up. Keep an eye on it, especially heading into sprint quali. And quite excitingly, this also means for the first time this season, we will legitimately see the pace of each car on the track. Back to you in the studio, Zach. And now it is time that we have a quick rundown of the Australian Grand Prix with your top 5 craziest things that happened. Number 5. Nico Hülkenberg managed to score points on his debut for Sauber, scoring more points than they had in the total of 2024. And not only this, this now makes Sauber the highest Ferrari-powered constructor, as they are ahead of Ferrari in the constructors. However, I wouldn't even have bet £1 for that to have happened. Number 4. Ferrari managed yet again to have dry tyres on a wet track. It's such a staple that we just can't get rid of. We saw it in Canada last season as well. They just love doing it. Number 3, Antonelli had one of the best debuts I have seen in the modern era of Formula 1, getting up to 4th place in that Mercedes from a qualifying position of 16th, might I add. He's looking to do some very good things coming into the future, and hey, let's see if he can get another top 10 in China. Then in at number 2, we have Hadjar, sadly not even making it out of the formation lap. He just went on the acceleration a bit too quickly and broke his rear wing. It was really sad to see. Luckily, Anthony Hamilton was really nice to him and just tried to coach him a bit through. Unluckily for him, Helmut Marko was being Helmut Marko, and he's a bit of a prick. No doubt in my mind, Hadjar will bounce back in China. And then number 1, and sadly for Oscar Piastri, the Aussie curse is still not broken. No one has gone on the podium or won the Australian Grand Prix at their home GP. We've got to wait till next year if Piastri wants to do it again. Spinning. It was heartbreak when he did it. Luckily, he managed to still get out of the grass, get back on the road, and managed to still score points. Great determination from Piastri, but sad because he was definitely getting at least second, and I think he could have put up a fight to Lando Norris. But that is your Australia rundown. I could have made this list about 10 things that happened. It was that crazy of a race. But now moving away from Australia again and looking back to the Chinese Grand Prix, let's hear a few things of what the teams and the drivers are thinking ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix. So, the big one is the FIA are not happy, and I need to elaborate on this straight away, and I promise I'm not biased, But a lot of people have been talking about the mini DRS, the flexi wings situation, and it's going to be reduced because the FIA are really not happy. Keyword, with multiple teams. A lot of people have been saying it's going to be McLaren, it's just McLaren. It very much is a lot of teams. Now, do I still think McLaren will be competitive into China? 100%. Even if it was McLaren, their gap would probably go down from half a second ahead of the field to around, what, 0.3? Maybe still even a bit more. So we'll see what happens. But keep an eye out on big teams that have done big pushes. The likes of Alpine, the likes of Williams. Those are the teams I'm more worried for at the minute. But the gist of this news is that a lot of people just think it's McLaren. Don't be alarmed if it's a lot more other teams. Then we move on to Ocon, who was quite taken aback from the Haas performance, or lack of it, I should say, in Australia. Now, did we think Haas were going to be the worst car in 2025? No. But we've seen them do this before. Potentially, like a few other teams, they've put all their eggs into that 2026 basket and they're not thinking anymore. But it's going to be a long season for both Ocon and Behrman if this stays the same. From the looks of things, it will. Zach Brown has hailed Norris's drive as unbelievable. And I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised. He's definitely not biased. It'd be a bit weird if they were reporting on Zach Brown saying Norris isn't good enough. He should have won by about a minute. Well, that's the scary thing in that rocket ship. I wouldn't even put it past them if it's on a dry track. And then finally, Horner is still backing Lawson and Hadjar. Let's see what he's saying in summer, as we all know what Red Bull's like. Realistically, those words mean nothing to us because they are very much ruthless. But that is what everyone is saying ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix. Now, let's move on to the best part of the video, and that is ZachGP's prediction. Now, if you weren't following along for Australia, or if you just randomly saw a video on my channel saying, I do not like Pierre Gasly, and then you saw me chugging a Marmite-infused soy sauce water with some mayo, that is because I lost that forfeit. I said Pierre Gasly would get into the top 10. He did not. He should have, which annoyed me very much, but hopefully I get this prediction right this time. So my big forfeit prediction this week is Carlos Sainz crashed out in Australia, and I think he's going to bounce back. I'm going for a bit more of a safe one this weekend, but if Carlos Sainz does not score any points in the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, then I will do 100 push-ups consecutively on camera. I'll show you everything, showing you that I'm not cheating or nothing. And if that doesn't sound hard, just remember, yeah, these arms are noodles, okay? I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get past 20. But for the more normal predictions, who have I got for winning? Well, I've still got Lando Norris. Now, it's a bit of a boring one considering I've gone Lando Norris last week and it was correct to Lando Norris this week. The reason I say this is because China's never really been one of Piastri's better tracks. In 2024, like I mentioned, he finished behind Fernando Alonso in 8th. So I'm not expecting brilliant things from Piastri. I still expect him second, but I think it's one of those weekends where Norris is pretty good around China. I think he'll be able to just run away with it for this weekend. Piastri's still going to get closer. He just needs to come to his tracks where he's better at. Hopefully he proves me wrong though, because I want this fight in the championship to be close. And at the minute, it only looks like Piastri can hold it to Norris because McLaren's so fast. Then for my top three, I've gone for the McLaren boys of Norris and Piastri, and I'm not giving up yet. I've gone for Charles Leclerc. I do think Charles Leclerc was on, for at least in Australia, a decent looking position until Ferrari did Ferrari things. But also, we saw in the race, it was kind of true that Hamilton was all over Albon for most of the race. Leclerc got past Tsunoda and Albon. Now, it didn't look like they were that much quicker than the Mercedes or the Red Bull, but if they can just qualify a little bit better, it looks like Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari doesn't have that much of a gap. So I've still got him potentially coming third. Maybe I'm just going a little bit delusional, thinking hopefully there could still be a Ferrari versus McLaren fight, because although my team is McLaren, I want them to win, but let's make it fun, you know what I mean? Then last place, I went Bortoleto last weekend. I wasn't far off with that, but now we know a bit more about Haas. Sadly, it's going to be Behrman, and I think it could be Behrman for most weekends. So that could be a bit of a dud prediction pretty soon, but I might get a bit fun with it. Let's see. If it starts happening too much, I'll add the DNFs, which I don't at the minute. And then finally, the best of the rest, I have gone for this weekend, Yuki Tsunoda. Now, he was looking like he could have done it in Australia, got unlucky with the strategies, so it wasn't really his fault, but he had a brilliant race up until that point. Probably should have scored points, not probably, definitely. So I've got him, like Carlos Sainz, bouncing back in China and giving us a good show. So finally, let's head over to the ZachGP Analyst for your track overview.
The Shanghai International Circuit originally entered F1 for the 2004 season, and it consists of 16 turns, 2 DRS zones, and 56 laps, with one of the most unique pit stop entries in F1, and all in all is always a great race.
Thank you very much, Bear, and that is all she wrote for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you are all excited for the Chinese Grand Prix. If you're playing F1 Fantasy, I will have a video out on Friday after the sprint quali telling you exactly what you should do. I will also have 2 live streams that I'll get into a little bit about, but one at the 1 hour deadline. However, thank you all so much for watching. It's going to be a brilliant weekend. Keep an eye out on more stories on the F1 website, and keep an eye out on those upgrades coming in, as the FIA will give these out officially around the practice time, maybe Thursday, Friday. So keep your eye on that. We haven't got them yet, but I'm sure to see some circuit-based upgrades coming to China. But that is all. Thank you all so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you liked what you saw. We've already got to 2,000 subs, so hey, let's say 2,500. At the end of March. I thought 2,000 was pushing it. Thank you all so much for the support. And yeah, I'll see you all later. Take care.